Welcome back to the Boys in Motion podcast. We're your hosts, Brian, Andrew, and Tyler. Today's episode, we're bringing you a distinct perspective from one of the boys in motion, or maybe girls in motion athletes that we love the most. So yeah, looking forward to diving in to this chat with a very special guest.
Today, we're going to hear from the heart of BIM herself, Kennedy, a seasoned runner aiming to add another accomplishment to her running portfolio. We'll be chatting about her endurance background and her build to Around the Bay race just in a couple months' time.
Whether you're racing or a real vet, this episode will have something for you. Let's dive into our first interview with Kennedy.
Super. It's been a long time coming, Kennedy. Thanks for joining the Boys in Motion pod. We are very, very excited that this episode has finally come down the pipeline.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm pretty excited about it. First podcast.
That's awesome. Well, a well-deserving guest, the second BIM guest officially, which is super thrilling. Kennedy, we go a long way back. We trained in rowing together. I officiated your wedding with Michael, and we're now training for the same race Around the Bay. You are someone that I feel like is a lifetime athlete. Can you kind of walk people through your background and where you are today?
Yeah, so like you said, I have been an athlete my whole life. I have done a little bit of everything. I figure skated when I was a little kid, switched to hockey when I was 11, played competitively, considered going to school on a scholarship for hockey. I also ran cross country at the time, and like Brian said, we used to row together, so a little bit of a multiple trick pony, different tricks, but it was fun to always be active. I met most of my friends through sports, and most of us are still friends to this day. So I feel like through activity, I've met some of my lifelong friends, which has been really awesome. But after hockey, I stopped at the end of high school, and then university kind of took a little bit of a break. I rode horses as well. So I did do that up until the spring of this year. But in the last couple of years, I found that I was looking for something that had a little bit more of a competitive side to it. I was competing riding up until a summer ago, and then decided that was probably going to be my last summer competing for a couple of reasons, but I tried to find something else that was different, that would appease my competitive mindset and something new to challenge myself to do. So I decided I was going to do a half marathon with my mom. That was like my first goal. So last February or March maybe, we signed up for a 10K in June, and then we signed up for the Muskoka Half Marathon. So we started training together, and it was really fun. Honestly, we spent a lot of time together, kind of going back and forth between running where I live versus running where she lives, and going to cottages and stuff and planning routes there. It was always just a way to spend some like isolated time together and chat and also get some steps in. But yeah, so I ran that half marathon in the fall with my mom, and I told myself if I could do that and feel comfortable doing it, like if I got to the finish line and didn't hate every second of it, that I was going to sign up for Around the Bay, and entries actually opened that day, the day of the half marathon. So I finished that race, and before I got in the car, I signed up for Around the Bay. Yeah.
That sounds exactly like Tyler.
That's awesome.
The moment you cross the finish line, commit to another race.
Have to do it, or else you're not going to get back into it. I'm like the person,
Exactly.
if I have time for it now, I need to keep going or it's going to fall off. So that's what I did. So here we are. We are a month and a half away from Around the Bay, and training's going good.
And I think you started a train, really. You were the one who started this mass sign up for a BIM squad, so let's get it going.
The story behind that's actually so funny, though. We went to dinner, my husband and I, with Brian and his partner. We all went to dinner together, and I was saying that I signed up for Around the Bay, and I thought it was going to be so fun. And Brian said, "Oh, that sounds great." And I said, "Yeah, well, today is the last day for early bird pricing." And I just kind of like joked about it, saying, "You should sign up." And so everyone at the table signed up. And then I messaged a bunch of friends and said, "You should sign up. It's the last day for early bird pricing." Like, you know, those friends that you can kind of convince to do anything if you just kind of put a little bit of bait at the finish. So I did that. And then the next day we found out that early bird pricing was already over and everybody had already signed up.
That's a bait and switch right there, but I like it. That's great. Great idea. I would have took the bait too. So
yeah.
Love it. Yeah, you got the ball rolling, and now we have, I don't know what, close to 30 people on the BIM squad for Around the Bay. So you have a pretty big crew that's going to be coming to Hamilton.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm curious, as far as your training approach for Around the Bay, are you following any specific plan? Are you kind of just going as the weeks go, or is there any specific plan that you're following?
So I use the Hal Higdon plans. So I set that one up, but I'm doing a full marathon plan right now just because I've never done a 30K before. And I know I want to do a full marathon in the fall. So this is kind of like a prep for myself to see if I could do it and be comfortable and not injure myself. And I also couldn't find a 30K plan that I liked. So I was like, you know what? This one goes, I think it only goes 3 kilometers over 30. I'm also someone that likes to do the distance once. So I know that I've done something harder before I go to race day and then feel like it's awful, especially with those hills. But yeah, so I am doing a Hal Higdon one. And then I do throw in other activities on like rest days or cross training days, but I do try to follow the plan as much as I can running wise anyways.
That's very interesting. Following the plan, because this is a controversial topic, and I see Tyler lowering his brim, because the moment Kennedy started chatting, I pulled up some Stravas, and I just want to mention some stats, just so that the people understand how much you're actually training, Kennedy. So your plan right now, and you're mixing in walks and swimming and then workouts on top of all of this, but you have 85 total activities in the last 4 weeks, and your average for the last 4 weeks, running only, was almost 46 kilometers a week. Tyler, the ultimate Ironman, his last 4 week average is 17.3K. So you're doing a lot, and I've seen the stats. It's paying off. So it's very impressive, the amount of work that you're putting in, and that was something that I think we acknowledged during the BIM award show, is the consistency is there, and it's a whole lot of everything, right?
Yeah.
So throughout this block, have you been feeling your fitness really improving? Is it something that you're like noticing?
Absolutely. Hugely, actually. I feel like in my first training block for my half marathon, I felt like there was kind of like this ceiling. Like I couldn't get any faster, is what I was feeling. I was able to keep my heart rate a little bit lower, but even trying to stay zone 2 was virtually impossible for me. Versus now, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable in like my zone 2 training. I feel like I'm able to go even a lot faster than I was before. Like this week, I think I ran like a 550 or something in zone 2, which for me before was just not possible. So in the last, I want to say 2 months, I've felt a huge uptick in my fitness. And I don't think it's necessarily just the running. I think it's the balance of everything that's been helping. But yes, I do notice a huge change, which has been nice.
That's great. So do you feel like that's really motivating you as you like continue to climb towards the start line at Around the Bay?
For sure. Yeah. It's also kind of rewarding and kind of like a mental boost. Like I can do this. I am fit enough to do this. I've been working hard and it's showing. So if I keep going, then this should be fine. And it shouldn't be the worst thing I've ever done, which will be great.
Not yet. It's always the worst thing until there's the next worst thing. That's the best part of it.
Exactly.
You mentioned hills earlier. I'm curious, as someone who's also training for Around the Bay and is trying to figure out how to train for those hills in Hamilton, what kind of workouts or things are you adding to your week to try to get that elevation, and any specific workouts you're liking?
Yeah. So hill wise, so I live in a very flat area. Like there are no hills where I live whatsoever. I think there's one and it's an elevation of like 15 meters. So you could run up and down it all day long and you would never get anywhere. So a lot of my runs, I have actually been trying to drive to where my parents live, which is a lot more hilly. So I'll do some of my zone 2 runs there, or I try to do my long runs there just to try to build some endurance and get those hills in on tired legs and try to get used to that as much as I can. When I do have small inclines in this area, I try to do my route so that I'm going uphill instead of downhill as often as I can, so that I'm just getting whatever is possible. And then outside of that, I'm also, when I'm biking, so I try to bike like twice a week on my cross training days. I prioritize like hills on the bike over anything else. I'm not a huge flat road person. I actually love climbs. So I think that is also helping as well, just trying to keep my heart rate a little bit lower with the resistance higher, and just getting used to that lactic acid burn has been helpful as well.
That's very cool. So you are like a multi-sport. You mentioned being a multi-trick pony, also like growing up. How would you rank kind of the three triathlon disciplines against each other?
Well, you're probably not going to like this, but running is definitely number one for me. I do love the run. I really love
Let's
it.
go.
Always have. It's been nice. I hate the bike more than anything in the world. I hate that bike. The days that I have to ride it are the worst thing ever. I dread it every time. I tell Michael, like we jumped on a call actually once with you, Brian. You were biking with him, and I was on the Peloton beside him. And he's looking over at me, asking how I'm doing. I'm like, I want to get off this thing so badly, I can't even tell you. So that is definitely last. The swim I actually enjoy, which is nice. It's almost like a recovery. In
Wow,
fact, I
that's
do that for recovery day sometimes. That's sometimes my like recovery day activity.
very surprising. I know everybody hates the swim, especially in the triathlon community. You might as well call everyone duathletes because the swim is what everyone dreads. So that's awesome that that's your second most favorite sport. So
Yeah.
that you already have a leg up on most people.
Well, thank you. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how. I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but I do like it. So there's that.
Fair. So that means like not only are you preparing for around the bay, but you also have your eyes on your first ever triathlon.
Sure do. Yeah.
What like what was the decision that was made there to kind of tackle something?
I can't really pinpoint anything, to be honest. I think it was just the intrigue of just wanting to see if I can do it. I've never done anything like that in my life. I think it'll be exhausting and really hard, but I've been loving kind of pushing my limits and seeing what I'm capable of doing. So I figured why not give it a shot and see.
Fair
That's
enough.
awesome. Do you
Yeah,
have any in mind? What are you thinking about this summer?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do the Rose City one, just close to home, nice and easy, that way anyways. And I'm comfortable with the flat water. I've swam there a couple times, so actually be able to practice on the course, which will be nice. Maybe a little leg up there, and yeah.
Very true. That's a good idea because you really want to get used to that course and get your I guess some of those jitters out from the unknowns. So that's great. Good to hear. I think I'll be racing as well, so we'll see how that goes.
Perfect. I'll see you there.
oh, that's great. So let's dive in deep to around the bay, given that like a lot of this, and I think our goal here is to do this intro episode with you and then actually follow up pretty close to race day
Okay.
for a little bit of like a pre-race analysis and then do a post-race analysis. But we're what 2 months out approximately. So, what are some of the strategies you're employing today to make race day a success?
I think the one thing that I'm really trying to work on the most is fueling. I think that's something that I really struggle with. I do not want to eat anything when I'm running, and I don't want to drink anything. I hate carrying it. I hate dealing with it. Today on my run, my water actually froze, so that'll be a new task to figure out. My water bottle froze within 5 kilometers, so that was awesome. But yeah, so that's definitely one thing that I'm really working on is trying to nail that down, make sure my stomach's able to handle my food okay. And then my other thing is also prioritizing sleep. That's been a huge game changer for me. I used to be a horrible sleeper, would stay up not late, but late enough and didn't sleep well and didn't recover and wasn't eating well. Just everything was bad. Everything that you want to focus on when you're endurance training was not good. So I think that's been like a big priority for me is trying to prepare myself in the best way that I can, not just training wise, but also mentally and physically.
Yeah, that's great. It definitely like training for an event like this, it's all day, every day. And like it's a lot of management outside of just training. Diving into that nutrition point, what do you think is your plan for race day? Do you know what kind of gels you're going to use and like how are you going to position those through your run?
So I have a very hard time with gels. I really hate the texture of them. I'm a very textural eating person, so I can't get past them. So I've been doing those chews actually. I'm able to get down a little bit better. So I've been using Exact Nutrition is what I've been using, and I think they're actually also sponsoring the race, which would be helpful. So maybe I'll
I
have
think
to
so.
carry less.
Yeah, it looks like they are the on-course nutrition, so that's nice.
That is nice. But that's what seems to do okay with my stomach. I don't hate the taste of them. They're easy to digest and easy to handle, and they're small. So they recommend like every 45 minutes you take one. I'm doing probably closer to an hour. But I'm also kind of planning it based off of, like right now anyways, I plan all of my routes in advance just so I kind of know where I'm going to end up and don't end up with like 3 kilometers left and nowhere to go. I hate that more than anything. It's like a big mental thing for me. So I try to plan where I'm going to take my gels as well. So for example, like this morning, I knew I was going up a hill at like a 10K up point. So I told myself I was going to take it at 9 so that it would hopefully kick in at least at the top of the hill, if not below. So I try to strategize that way a little bit, and I'll probably do the same with the Around the Bay. Kind of take a look at the course and plan locations more than a feeling. Maybe that's wrong, but that's how my brain works. So that's what we've been doing so far.
I think that is a good idea. Plan ahead, and that way you get less stressed mentally, and that takes a toll on your body too. So I think planning your route is perfect during training, and then again, that dives into your race day strategy. Is just like, hey, at this kilometer mark or at this timestamp, I'm going to take all my gels and kind of memorize that, you could say, and you'll be ready to go. That's a great idea.
That's the goal.
Yeah, no, Andrew, I want to just ask a question here as an aside. Like, you've done a ton of marathons. One question for you is, like, in terms of actually on race day, like Kennedy's saying one exact an hour in training, but would you recommend maybe more? And then how do you go about strategically placing the calorie consumption in a big race?
Yeah, generally my minimum for racing is about 80 grams of carbs per hour for running. So that I really like cis gels just because it's 40 grams. So I need to take less gels to get a lot of carbs, but whatever works for you. I generally space it out every 25 minutes. I have a nutrition timer on my watch, and then I will take a gel and I rotate between calf and non-calf, doing more calf at the beginning of my race just so that it's hitting in at a perfect time to get me across that finish line and not afterwards when I'm already done. But one thing that I love to do is I do gut training before on my long runs where I try to push that number as high as I can on long runs when the stakes aren't as high. So then I'll try to do like 80 to maybe 110 grams over like 3 weeks where I'm really just like, and on those, I'll do like a mixture of gels, candy, dried fruit, something like that. But it's definitely something you need to work at before race day so that the stomach will be happy with it.
For Kennedy, that's going to be like a whole day buffet for you. I'm looking at the exact nutrition bars, and they're about 25 grams of carbs per, which means that's like basically 3 an hour. Do you think you can handle that?
Are those the minis or are those the full bars? Because I know there's
Uh,
minis and full bars.
the 30 grams, so I think that would be like 2 pieces.
Okay. Yeah, that will be definitely a challenge for me. Like I said, it's not something that I desire when I'm running either. Like if I don't have it, I don't feel like I miss it. I know that I could be missing time, but my body doesn't feel depleted, if that makes sense. Like if I take it, I don't notice a huge change. I know I would if I were to continue. And like I said, I think I want to do a full in the fall. I know I would miss it by like the last 10 is I would be feeling it 100%. But that is something that I do need to work on and I'm trying to kind of figure out. But I also have a super sensitive stomach in the first place. So I do take some carbs before I go. Dried fruit is a big thing for me. I love like dried cranberries, so I take a bunch of those or dates. Those seem to work as well. So I take those. Yeah, those fruit to go bars are also awesome. But yeah, so I like to do that before I go and try to like bulk up before I start a little bit. That does help my stomach sometimes, but yeah, that is a work in progress.
Well, to be fair, the first around the bay that I did, I think I had one Cliff Bar during the race and just like totally bonked out at like kilometer 26 or so because I knew nothing about nutrition. So any way you go, if you're even having one of those exact per hour, you're going to be flying by my previous nutrition strategy.
The classic dad solution: just have a Cliff Bar, you'll be fine.
And protein is exactly what you need mid 30K run. But yeah, I think it's interesting that the difference between your previous longest race was a half marathon,
Mm-hmm.
and you're kind of dipping your toe into this like 30K marathon. And I think there are some things that change quite drastically as you're pushing like the beyond 2 hours. And one is definitely that nutrition piece. I feel like that is something that try to experiment as much as possible to figure out what works for you, because the body starts to break down in interesting ways if you're underfueled. And I've definitely had the bonk at the end of some races, and it's not fun.
I believe it. Yeah, no, it's definitely a work in progress. Yeah, we will see what the stomach is able to handle and go from there.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then for hydration, I know you mentioned like hydration strategies. The nice thing about an organized event like this is there will be water tables. Like you say, you can grab an exact as well. I know I'm going to be just piling the exacts into the pocket for training for other events, maybe not taking them on race day. But hydration is kind of solved, which is nice. And I don't know if they have it in this race, but generally there's like water and some sort of electrolyte mix as well. So that's handy.
Right. And I do run with a vest that has like a hydration pack as well. So for anything in between that has the electrolytes in it. So that's nice as well. So it's something in between will be nice.
Very spooky. So looking at the training block, so we talked about like hills, how consistent you are, all of that. What's your biggest week look like?
My biggest week is a couple weeks from now. So I think, let me try to add that up. So my 2 short runs are 8, my long run's 13 and a half. Sorry, my middle tempo run is 13 and a half, and my full long run is 32. So I don't know, add that up.
Sounds like it's north of 60
I was gonna
or
say
like right
60
around
something
60.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot, especially on top of the other training that you're doing. So those are big weeks. I'm sure you're like most of the time over 10 hours a week, right?
Oh yeah, every week.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
every week. Yeah.
Just finished a 10-hour week and my body feels broken. So it's impressive the amount of volume that you're able to sustain consistently. Do you have any tips for the community specifically on that consistency point?
Well, first, I think the one thing to keep in mind is I do also do a lot of walking. I don't consider a lot of that as my training. That's purely to get my dog outside and get him to nap instead of destroy our house. So that is a big part of my training. My activity. I do between 6 and 8 kilometers walking almost every day. So there is that. But in terms of everything else between the biking, strength training, running, and occasional swimming, I a lot of the time don't feel like doing it. A lot of the time it is the last thing that I want to do. I will drag on my day and say I'm going to do it at my lunch, and no, I'm going to do it as soon as I'm done work. No, I'm going to do it when I make dinner, and then I'll go. I heard this thing online. It was like a 10-minute rule, and basically it's put your shoes on, go outside, and do 10 minutes. If at the end of 10 minutes you don't want to do it, then stop, and that's fine. I have yet to stop. I've yet to turn around and go back. So it's been really nice. I feel like the first 2K of runs especially are normally difficult, trying to find your groove, your comfort zone, get your heart rate under control. But after that it's normally pretty smooth sailing. And that's been really, really helpful for me is that whole if it's not okay after 10 minutes, I can go back and that's fine. I gave it a shot and that's all that matters. But that's been my biggest game changer, I think, because previously I would not want to do it and then just say it's fine. I'll just cross it off and it's just a zone 2 day. So who cares? But they are important. And like I said, I've noticed a big change in the last 2 months in my fitness. So obviously it's making an impact. So it's been a big game changer for me.
And on that point of some days you're just, other than this trick that you use, the 10-minute, is there anything during the activity of any like mental games or anything to like make something easier? Do you like listening to music, podcasts? Just anything to make it a bit more enjoyable?
I am definitely a podcast person when I'm running. I used to make fun of podcast people when they were running until I found one that just shuts my brain off. It's like horrible Reddit stories basically and people making fun of other people. It sounds horrible, but it's very interesting. It's pretty crazy
Is
what you can hear on Reddit.
is that too hot takes?
It is.
Yeah.
So that is like my big like distraction podcast. If I know I have a really long run, I'll like save up a couple episodes and listen to that while I'm running. Or I also have a friend that we like talk on the phone quite often. So if I have a zone 2 run and it's like late enough in the afternoon, I'll give her a call and we'll chat while I run, while she's driving or whatever. So that's been nice to do as well. Or my long runs, my mom also runs, as I mentioned before. She's training for a marathon in April. So she's a little bit behind me on her training block. So my runs are a little bit longer than hers at the moment. So I'll start, like this morning, I did 11 by myself, and then I picked her up and then did the rest of my run with her. So I'm a big advocate of like group runs or like having someone to talk to. I think that makes the world of a difference for me. If I don't have to focus on the actual running, I really enjoy it. The only time that I actually like to focus on the running is during a tempo run, and those are a struggle in the first place, but really cool to see what you're able to do.
Yeah, I agree. The tempo runs are huge kind of check in to reinforce like mentally where you are in your training and just how much fitness you've built. So 100% those are like big confidence boosters as your block progresses, and especially on tired legs, right? It's
Absolutely.
amazing what you can do. So also shout out to your idea about calling on like chatting on the phone, as long as that person is like fine with you sort of like breathing heavy and that sort of thing. The phone call runs are just a hack to staying in zone 2, I feel like.
They are pretty fun. Yeah, it's nice. We used to only be able to catch each other when we were both driving somewhere. We are notorious. She lives in another province, so we don't see each other very often. So it's kind of our way of like staying in touch is like hour-long phone calls. So they've been nice to be able to be doing something. And yeah, she does not mind the heavy breathing, so that's good.
I think if you'd call in during a zone 2 run, the real hack is that they don't even know because you're not heavy breathing. You're just out for almost a walk. So
It's true. It's
um,
true. It has happened before that she didn't realize. She's like, "Hey, can you check this for me?" I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm running. But normally there's some good wind, or like I said, there's a couple hills, so it does get me sometimes. But yeah, it's been nice.
I love it. I also love when I'm on the runs is also my favorite time to make phone calls.
It's nice.
One, in the best mood, and what else am I doing? I'm not it's free time to chat. So
Right. Right.
it's nice.
Mine's
Well,
go.
recently, Andrew, you've been joining in on the BIM bike rides just on the phone, but running instead. That's pretty nice too on the FaceTime until
It's
your phone
real
freezes.
it's real nice until my phone dies. But yeah, great time to chat. I
Except the
think
FaceTiming while running. That is a very like sought after talent. I don't know how you don't trip and fall, but good job.
That's next level. Now you got to try that, Kennedy.
well, I agree based on running in Niagara the last couple times, your running conditions and the like foot situation is a little bit more sketchy than my nice perfectly groomed sidewalks and running trails. So
That's true.
I can just turn my brain off.
That's true. Our sidewalks
But
are worse than our roads, so that's true.
yeah.
Until a friggin' Uber Eats driver comes and clips you on the sidewalk.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's another story. Depending where I'm running, I try to avoid those areas. I think before we get into chat time and do a few little games and maybe even a hot take, I think I'm curious going into Around the Bay at this moment, if you could put it into A, dream goal, B, realistic goal, and C, baseline goal, where are you at as far as your goals for Around the Bay?
Are we talking pace wise?
It can be whatever you want. Yeah, your goals can be anything.
I think my dream goal would be to not have a negative split on the hills. That is like my like really want to make it up the hills and not be in the negatives. My like goal is to finish in 3 hours, as close to 3 hours as I can. So that is my like I think pretty achievable goal. And then what was the last one? Sorry.
Just a baseline goal that if something goes wrong, if you at least hit this, it's you'll be at least somewhat happy with the result.
If I finish the race and don't have to walk up the hills and be absolutely exhausted, I will be happy with the race.
That's a great baseline goal. That was the baseline goal for my marathon as well. Was don't stop running.
Yeah.
And then everything else was kind of gravy.
Exactly.
Now, I think your realistic goal is right on point. Like you were just chatting earlier about some of your zone 2 work now being sub 6, which at Around the Bay, 6-minute kilometers, that's your 3-hour mark right there.
Right.
So I think you're setting yourself up for success, and coming through like that 15-20K marker, I think you'll be feeling really, really good if you pace yourself early for that goal.
Cross my fingers.
I mean, it's always weather dependent at a race like Around the Bay. Like that when we were talking a few episodes ago about that like race breakdown and what to expect. I think it was episode 32, if I'm not mistaken. A race like Around the Bay can be so variable. Luckily, our winters aren't quite as harsh as usual, and it's not Ottawa, so we got some sun down here. But it can be quite bad and slushy and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the wind coming off the lake can also be a real monster. So we also live really close to the lake, so like those headwinds can be absolutely disgusting. So that is the goal. We'll see how it goes, but that's the plan.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're going to check in before that race. We've noted down those goals, so we will see come race day if those expectations have shifted. I do have a feeling your time goal, your like realistic time goal, might get a little more aggressive after you start tapering.
We'll see. We'll see.
I can't believe the volume that you're putting out, Kennedy, because I'm trying to maintain 200-kilometer weeks right now, and my legs are just falling apart right now.
That's a lot. That's a big week.
Frig, it's nice when you don't have a training plan. You just chill.
How do you not have a training plan? You're also training for a race.
Just hanging out. My training plan starts in 2 weeks.
It keeps getting pushed back.
Yeah, it started with 8 months and then it's going to 8 weeks.
Good.
That's the key to consistency right there. You just keep pushing the start line, and you're never not consistent, but you're never consistent.
You're never consistent.
I'm trying to see the pace for 3 hours, but I can't figure that out.
Pace for 3 hours is 6 minutes.
But you're kind of aiming for?
Yeah.
That's my engineer, baby. Big
That's
math
freaking
man.
Nice. I'm not a freaking math guy, let me tell you.
Yeah, 6 minutes. I feel like most of the time I can do faster than 6 minutes and be totally fine, but those hills are freaking me out. So
Same.
I mean, I'm learning from Andrew doing some Strava investigations, and I see your January 26th long run, a full half marathon, big hills the whole time.
That was disgusting.
And you did it at 5:56.
It was disgusting.
So you're good.
So you're there already.
Friggin', today was massive. What the heck? That just came out of nowhere. I just checked the feed.
That was long.
27. That's
You
wild.
did 27 today?
Yeah,
this morning.
For frig.
Yeah.
27 and a half.
I was almost late to this. I literally ran in the house, changed my sweater, and sat down.
Isn't that I see that picture of the Line Avenue path. Isn't that beautiful through that section?
So nice.
Yeah, that looks like a dream. Oh my
It
god.
was beautiful. Yeah, the rest of it was horrible, but that was nice.
You go from Mark and I were talking about this. You go from like Welland to Font Hill, and then boom, it's just totally like just flat pavement.
Pristine.
Honestly,
oh
I
yeah.
just run in Font Hill all the time. Like the sidewalks are all paved. It's beautiful. Everything's salted. It's clear. It's easy.
So you just drive to Font Hill and go there? That's nice.
Yeah. I do that.
Did you start in Welland?
I started at Black Sheep, yeah, and then ran to get
okay.
my mom, and then ran back to Black Sheep and the bottom half of the canal.
True. Okay, Frig, so you did full 3 hours. That's a huge Zone 2 effort. Wow.
I'm jealous. Even friggin', I'm looking down, scrolling down Brian and Reegs too.
I know, I saw that too.
Andy's going out. I'm boycotting the runs. I'm boycotting the runs, baby. I'm not doing it. I'm not running.
Don't you have a gym membership to go on the treadmill, so you can't use the weather excuse?
No comment. I can't leave the house. That's my problem. I can't leave the house. I need a dead mill at home.
Oh my God.
I see. So you just pay for the membership to think about the dead mill?
Yeah, it's a ghost membership.
Oh, nice.
Love that.
Best kind.
Yeah, but like the parallels between this Sunday long run, and remember that run that we did with John pre-marathon, Tyler, where we did basically the full marathon course?
Yeah.
This is basically that run, because it was the same time as our marathon. It was just slower. And
yeah, exactly.
I think we did the full, like on average, like 45 seconds faster than that run. So like I could realistically assume like your A goal is like somewhere in the 5:30 to 5:45 zone, 100%. Which is crazy. Like, and I'm talking for you, Kennedy. That's nuts.
Sorry, what? Me? 5:35?
That's a hot take. That's a hot take.
Based on the pace today for your long run, I think you could cut off easily 45 seconds from that pace.
That's insane. My goal is like 5:45. I feel like 5:45. Some days it feels great, and some days it feels horrible. So I feel like trying to stay for 5:45 is like my kind
Yeah.
of
But
goal.
you have 2 more months. You're gonna taper into something. You're gonna feel like $1,000,000, and you're gonna overrun the first half. You're gonna have a lot of time on you, and then the hills are gonna kill you. Great question and answers here. I got a lot of insight on how you train and what you're getting into. So I'm super excited to see the outcome of Around the Bay and beyond. I think that's just a stepping stone to, like you said, your marathon, triathlons, and above and beyond. So super excited.
Thanks.
I got to get you on the spot here. Hot take. We need one from our guest here. Go.
Hey, hot take. Taper week sounds horrible. I don't want to taper. I don't want to taper at all. I want it to be harder so that the workout at the race feels easier. That is my plan. I don't want to taper. If I'm tapering my runs, I'm increasing my bike. That's how it's going to work. Like it or don't. That's how it's
Frig. I don't know. I kind of like that second part you said. You're increasing your bike, always looking to the next thing. I mean, I might be in for it.
I'm into it. Need a friend.
That's quite the hot take. I don't know. That might go against your dream goal. If you don't taper, those legs might feel dead as you go up those hills. I'm not sure.
But I feel like if I drop off so much, I'm gonna lose like fitness in that week. So I don't want to let it go. It's so close. I don't want to drop it off.
So that's fair, and I think that's what a lot of people kind of think, especially going into that first, like, we'll call it like a big block where you have a big goal and you're following a big training plan, is that taper, you start losing fitness and all of that. But it's all about recovery, right? You need to build some recovery into your legs after smashing all of that volume through the big block. And there are always like those spooky times during the taper where you feel like, oh, am I injured? Uh-oh, what's going on? Just because you aren't moving your legs quite as much. But it definitely pays dividends on race day. I know some of those runs that you do sort of at the peak of the training block, they feel super hard, and you're like, how am I going to hold this for like twice the distance, kind of thing, if you're on pace for your race. And then you go into the race off that taper, and the first like 2/3 of the race, because your legs are pretty fresh, feel like you're not even running, you're just floating. So definitely support the taper and disagree wholly with that hot take.
Well,
That's hilarious.
we shall see.
Big thing too there is mind games. It plays on you.
True.
That's a big thing.
I have a follow-up hot take. I think maybe if you don't want to taper, is it because your run volume is not high enough for yourself? Because I feel like once you get to the race, I'm like, my legs are done. I need a bit of a pullback before I can have like a big performance. I don't know.
Definitely possible.
Maybe you're ready for a step up in that volume.
I don't know. Maybe. Like I said, today's been my longest run of my whole life, and that felt like a long time. So I don't think I'm necessarily not running far enough. I will taper a little bit, so maybe I should like bring it back. I will definitely taper a bit, but it's not like, the week before the run you're supposed to do virtually nothing, like go for like a 5K maybe, or like a 3K the day before. We'll see. Maybe like a little bit more than that, like a 10 or like a 12. See how that goes.
Right. Yeah, that's the worry of losing fitness right there. I love the little quick shakeout run, but the thing that I really like about a taper week is still sprinkling in some intensity, because I think that's one thing. Like, I feel like in that taper week, I don't feel fast anymore. I feel rested, but I don't feel fast, and so sprinkling in a few like quick kilometers helps me mentally.
That's a good idea. We can give that a shot.
Yeah.
Very true.
Wednesday dress rehearsal before Sunday race is always the go-to.
That's what I was going to say.
Couple miles at race pace will do good, and we'll mentally be like, oh, I'm still fast. I still have the fitness.
True enough.
I was just trying to pull up my mileage for Around the Bay week, and actually there's a big star beside the week, and it's called Highest Mileage Week, baby. So we're excited for that race.
Well, yeah, you only do one run a week, and that week you're doing 30K. It's easy.
Yeah, it's a one every Sunday kind of run for me these days. So yeah, that's true. That'll be a highest mileage for me in a while.
I think this might be enough insanity, but before we let you go, Kennedy, we have a fun little ranking game to do with you. We did it for the first time last week. So you're going to do a blind ranking out of 5 items. So for you, we're going to do a blind ranking of essentials for the perfect run.
Okay, cool.
The first item, Gore-Tex running shoes.
Is it a winter run?
Yeah, let's do essentials for the perfect run, training for around the bay.
Okay, I'm gonna put it like 3. I feel like they're like nice to have. Definitely not my most important thing. I have definitely still had soaked feet in Gore-Tex shoes before, so if I don't have Gore-Tex shoes, I will survive. My shoes for around the bay also probably won't be Gore-Tex.
GPS running watch.
Honestly, for me, probably number 1. I'm like a very data-driven person. That is like I must have. If it dies, I might as well stop running. So probably my number 1.
I like that. If it's not on Strava, it didn't really
I
happen.
Big agree.
I agree.
And I think this next one is going to be a little bit upset about that. Number 3 is Big Mike as a running partner.
I would love to say that we're going to run around the bay together, but I'm pretty certain we will not be running around the bay together. He tries to kill me every time we run together.
True, but this includes training runs.
Oh, okay.
True.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, Michael, but the watch still takes number 1. Like, even if I could move them, I wouldn't. I think Michael goes number 2. It is nice to have him.
Okay.
He's definitely like it's annoying, honestly, because he's the big biker and I'm the runner, if anything, and he is significantly faster than me and it drives me freaking crazy. So if we're running together, it's a tempo run for me, almost 100% of the time. So I won't be devastated if we don't do all of our runs together.
All right, next up is a heart rate monitor.
Only because I've never used a true one, I'm going to put it at 5.
All right,
Fair.
This is going at the number 4 spot, but the last one is a post-run coffee and bagel at Black Sheep.
Oh, come on. Oh, that should be more.
We got him.
Oh, I'm devastated.
Got him.
That's the worst.
Got bamboozled. Where would you have put that one, though, if you had it?
Oh, like 2? The watch
After
is
the
still
watch,
a priority.
yeah.
Watch is still a priority to me. But yeah, no, a post-run treat, like that is like my biggest motivation to do anything. If you are going to get me like a bagel or a coffee and a treat, I will do almost anything that you want.
Well, running with Big Mike, that is a treat. So
it is a treat.
You might get a 2-for-1 there.
It's definitely a treat.
I put that there because I remember doing that very rainy run, and you said that exact quote of "I will do anything for a bagel." So,
and it's true. I did it today. It was great.
Tyler, make note of this. If Andrew's doing a blind ranking, the number 1 slot, you gotta save it because he's gonna spook you with that last pick.
But a sneaky one at the beginning. I knew the GPS running watch was gonna because I know a runner loves their GPS watch, and if it's not going, you're not running.
It's true.
This guy's a blind ranking architect here. I'm gonna have to watch out.
Oh, I love it. Well, this has been a great episode, Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining the pod, chatting with us, and telling us about kind of how you're preparing and what you have your eyes on for around the bay.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a really, really fun time. I loved it.
Super. So we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Boys in Motion pod. A big shout out to Kennedy for sharing her journey and her seasoned perspectives.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for more running tips, updates, and inspiration, and join our Strava club so you can stay tuned on the mega volume Kennedy is doing leading up to Around the Bay.
100%. Can't wait to see it. And remember, every runner has a unique story, just like Kennedy's, and every finish line is worth celebrating. Best of luck, Kennedy, and can't wait to hear back from you when we check in before Around the Bay begins.
Super. See you next time on the Boys in Motion pod.